Pastor Michael Bennett of the Christ Lutheran Church. Please stand.
Let us pray. Almighty and merciful God, we pray for your guidance and your wisdom for all who are gathered here this evening, especially for our mayor, our city manager, and all of the members of our city council. That all the presentations, discussions, and decisions that are made here this evening would benefit and serve the needs of all who live, work, and travel through the city of Hillsborough. We pray for your guidance and your wisdom also for our president, our governor, our national and state senators and representatives, our judges, and all public servants. Protect our local police officers, firefighters, all first responders, and law enforcement officials, and the men and women of our military, especially those who are deployed far from home. In all things and at all times, may everything that we do, say be inspired by your love and your care for us, and by our love and our care for others. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let's face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda, here statements from persons wishing to address the council. We have two. Basil Sankara, please. Same thing, Mr. Sankara, just please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and the council can respond.
Good evening, council members. My name is Basil Zangarian. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran, and I'm here again because the citizens of Hillsborough deserve better than what we're getting from the Department of Public Safety. Let me be absolutely clear. There is a culture of cover-up and misconduct within the Hillsborough Police Department, and it starts at the top with Chief Tony Kane. Over and over, when an officer violates the law, no action is taken unless the misconduct becomes so obvious. Tony Kane has to raise it up just to cover himself and protect that officer from being held criminally accountable. Why are there no other citizen complaints on record against these officers? Because Major Clay Sparks routinely refuses to accept them. That's not transparency, that's obstruction. City Manager Megan Henderson told me personally that complaints would be accepted and investigations would take place when there were legitimate questions about officer conduct. But then at the last city council meeting, she stood in front of the public and claimed that April 16th incident was investigated and wrongdoing was done. Despite the fact that internal affairs complaints was refused and she had accepted it directly from me, that's not oversight, that's collusion. Let me remind you what the law says. Texas Penal Code 39.03, official oppression. It is a crime for a public servant to knowingly violate the rights of a citizen under public law. Penal Code 30.05, criminal trespass. It's not a crime until the person is properly notified and refuses to leave. Penal Code 3802, failure to identify. It's only a crime after someone is lawfully arrested. And the U.S. Supreme Court in Terry v. Ohio, in Florida versus jail, makes it crystal clear officers must have reasonable or articulable suspicion of a crime to detain someone and probable cause to arrest. So let's talk about the case of Terry Dickman. Officers did not initiate this call through 911 or the non-emergency system. It was fabricated from a private grudge and never logged properly. Officer Brittany Gardner falsely swore in an affidavit that she saw Terry Dickman commit illegal dumping, when she actually had tracked him down along with Anderson, her training officer. That's perjury. That's misconduct. And that's the department out of control. Hillsborough has a serious police conduct and cover-up problem. And I've stood here before demanding that you fire Chief Tony Kane. And I'll say it again. This man is manipulating the council, he's manipulating the city manager, and he's manipulating the people that have elected all of you guys to protect them. This council will act, and if the district attorney, Mark Pratt, will investigate, and that's my next step, then I will take this to the Texas Rangers and the Attorney General's office. This is how serious it is. Time for warning is over. Just ask the Fort Worth Police Department and the Tarrant County DA's office what happened to you with corruption. Change is coming whether you like it or not. You either fix the problem.
Time's up.
Thank you, sir. We have one more, statements from a Carolina Rodriguez. Again, the same as, Mr. Zangari.
All right, as most people know,
That's 3 minutes.
okay, as most people know here, a woman had her rights violated when a Hillsborough police officer threatened her with arrest and she did not identify herself. State statute 302 says one only has to identify when you place under arrest. So complaints were made and it was determined that the police officer did no wrongdoing. That's all he said. He shouldn't do nothing wrong. But what we don't know is, how did they determine this? Who determined this? Was it the chief with the mail order college diploma? Was it the assistant city manager with the mail order city diploma, college diploma? All right, one answer with some transparency and holding themselves accountable should have been something like this. After our investigation, it turned out our officer doesn't have a clue what 302 is. And even those who trust her, they train our law officers. Therefore, we have decided to create a seminar that all our officers must attend so that they can be retrained and never have to watch, because we never want to violate anybody's rights ever. That's what I should have said. So Tony would then have to take off his assistant manager hat and put on his chief hat, and he has to go there and train the department. But if this were Teresa Garrett, you know what he would do? He would call that instructor out of the college, the community college, that instructor that has the mail order, college diploma, he'll teach the seminar. And then that guy would, build a city for it. That's what the guy thinks is what you're saying, Ariel. But anyway, we all know that y'all hate the outsiders here, and you think that we're just coming in and ruining things for everybody. We're just messing things up. We talked to a lot of residents here. And you know what we found out? We found out that no one knows the mayor's name. Maybe because there's only 200 people voted. They know that one right there. Walker! Who knows that one's name? Everybody knows her name. And he told us lots of stories about how the police screwed them over. And he told us that the police here don't even hide the fact that they hate citizens and are openly rude and disrespectful to them. And then we asked them, well, why's the crime rate here so low? And they said, because we depend on each other. We avoid calling the cops at all costs. That's why the crime rate's so here. So now the city manager needs to put on her big girl panties and look at the budget and determine if you're paying more out for the police than what they're bringing in the fines. And I guarantee you, you're paying so much more than what they're bringing in as fines. So I say, abolish our police department. Bring the county laws into the police, because they're not policing. They're just fines out hanging around. They don't have any kind of community license. They don't have any community teaching about how to pre-organize your home, all that stuff. They don't have any of those programs. They're just depending on force and being rude to people to get things done. They're not the ones bringing the crime rate down. The people are depending on each other. So that's what your city manager needs to do. Because these police are just running amok because they don't have a leader, because he's got 3 or 4 or 5 hats on. He's not even there to monitor them, right? So they know that if they do anything wrong, they will determine that they didn't do anything wrong.
10 seconds.
And so, bring the county laws in here to do policing. Get rid of this police department, and guess what? Taxes go down big time. Taxes go down so much. I don't have to pay for the police. Yeah, good.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Oh, wait, Tony.
Moving along to the consent agenda, deliberate and act on the approval of minutes for the special and regular meeting on May 15th, 2025, and May 20th, 2025. Act on the approval of bills. Deliberate and act on a resolution regarding a request by Main Street Board to close various streets for the purpose of holding bonds, alley, parks, festival, and related events. Council, any questions regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion and second.
Councilmember Fleming. Councilmember Lloyd. Councilmember Robinson. Councilmember Ritchie.
Moving on to the regular agenda, deliberate and act on the selection of a candidate to fill the vacancy in place 4 on the Hillsborough City Council until the next regular city election.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, Councilmember Francis Durati announced her resignation from her place 4 seat at the table. Since then, city staff has ran several notices in the newspaper, as well as the notices that have been posted on the city website, just allowing the citizens to submit interest letters, just stating their interest in the place 4 seat. We were able to receive
Mr. Hernandez, please step up, tell us your name, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind. Give us a little idea on why you're interested in the position and what experience you have to the council.
My name is Edgar Hernandez. I'm a lifelong resident here in Hillsborough. Went to all schools, graduated high school. After I graduated high school, I did a lot of volunteer work here in Hillsborough. Firstly, I started at the Hillsborough Interfaith Ministry where I was the center coordinator. We helped board quantities of food and distribution portions to residents. And I was starting there after I graduated high school. I was always interested in serving the public, and that was a position that wasn't paid. It was something that I did because I enjoyed helping people out. And that's kind of the drive to be here today. After that, I helped out also at the Mission Clinic here in the front. I was a translator for people who could not speak English. I was able to translate the information over to the medics, and then we were able to get proper diagnosis for people who had those problems with that. I also helped in the construction of that building, so whenever they were renovating, remodeling, I was assisting in removing sheetrock, adding sheetrock, doing all the small miscellaneous things there as well. I'm the current treasurer of the local church here, Iglesia Bautista Nueva Vida, so it's a Hispanic church. I serve as treasurer there. Like I said, I've always been, a lot of things that I do in life, I've centered around serving people. I like to serve people, and that's my passion. Currently, I'm an instructor at TSTC, plumbing and pipe fitting. So after I did volunteer work, I went to TSTC, graduated. I was a national competitor. I represented the state of Texas in nationals in Louisville, Kentucky. And after that, I had a very good career within the plumbing industry. I learned a lot of problem solving issues, dealing with people, going to people's homes, gaining their trust. And at this point, I'm currently an instructor at TSTC.
Council, any questions for Mr. Hernandez? Edgar, just to be clear, it says in your letter that you want the council that you own property in both Hillsborough and Waco, just to clarify, you do reside here.
Yes, sir.
Edgar, what do you see as the greatest challenge?
I think the greatest challenge is the division between staying a small town as opposed to actually growing. I think a lot of the problems stem from that in terms of revenues, in terms of taxes, increases in the water bills, stuff with utilities, infrastructure that needs to get done. A lot of that has to get done through taxes, and by doing that, at the same time, there have to be increases in taxes in order to compensate for the shortfall in the budgets. So, in my opinion, that's kind of one of the greatest factors right now. I think from the people that I've talked to and that I know, is that distinction between are we going to stay as a small town or are we going to continue to progress into maybe a bigger city at some point. And I think mainly it's just bridging the gap, having greater communication, I think, between people as well. Kind of like in my district, it's a heavily Hispanic area, so I'd like to have more people of that area to be involved in what the city is doing and have an input.
Councilman Ross? Thanks, Edgar, for your time.
Thank you.
Next up to the podium will be Mr. David Handy. Again, Mr. Handy, the same applies. State your name, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what experience, what interested you in this position, and what experience you had. That can be the
My name is David Handy. I've lived here most of my life, born and raised here in Hillsborough, Texas. See a lot of progression here. I love that Hillsborough is growing, but at a slower pace. I think Hillsborough's thinking about what they want to do, trying to make the right decisions as far as growth goes. And I've been here for most of the progression, and I just like to see where it's going from here. There's a huge Mexican community here that could be utilized in all the things in Hillsborough. I feel like Churro Fest has shown that events like that involve the Mexican community have grown to one of the biggest things here in town. Not just that, but things all over town, and I just like to see that progression with the Mexican community. As an artist, I would like to bring that out to out of people as well. There's a lot of potential here in town for our community, for not just a haven for artists here in town, for local artists, but a destination for visitors, to bring people in, to enjoy art and enjoy what Hillsborough has to offer. I think this is a great town, and it has a lot of potential for that, and Marfa can't have all of it. As an artist, a professional artist for over 25 years, that would be one of my main goals, to get everyone together as a community working, and art is a great way to do that. It brings everybody together. It kind of drops a lot of boundaries that we build as human beings, and just bringing people together is going to be one of my main goals.
Council, any questions for Mr. Handy?
I'll ask you the same question. What do you see as your first greatest challenge?
From what I've seen of just being back in town over the past few years, I've noticed that the people are willing to work with each other. I just think that needs to be a little more open, to where things are a little more invited, and people are a little more invited. Hillsborough as a whole needs to be a part of everything that goes on here. It's not just, shouldn't be just certain people here and there. It needs to be a group effort to get everybody involved. That's what I would like to see more, just a little more community effort to work with each other.
Council, any questions?
I have a question. I feel that our growth is inevitable. There's too much already going on for us to remain a small city.
Right.
So, from that viewpoint, how do you think we try to bridge some of those gaps on having more community involvement?
So what I've also noticed too is, just take Texas for example, is trying to fabricate what Hillsboroug's had for years. And it is that small town, and we do have a sense of community, it just needs to grow a little more, but, it's been here for years, and if Hillsborough can just hang on to that, the growth will come, I feel, and it'll be nothing but positive things. And like I said, I feel like not just Texas, but all of America right now is trying to recreate and fabricate that small town feeling everywhere, and it's just kind of, when I say fabricated, I feel like that's what it feels like. It's just kind of being forced, and it's not organic, and I feel like Hillsborough has that organic growth, which it will grow. You're right. I think it's gonna grow no matter what, but I like what Hillsborough is doing so far, where you're really thinking about what you want to do and trying to progress in the right way, which could only lead to better things. And it does, I've lived in Austin before, and I've seen what they've done the same thing, so I've experienced and lived it, where I can see what they were trying to do, but it doesn't work because there's no real involvement with the community or the people there. It's just kind of a gimmick. It's kind of it's all fake. But Hillsborough has a real sense of what a small town, or what a small Texas town is and should be. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Council, this is a deliberate act, so at this point, we can entertain a motion to nominate one of these individuals as a candidate to fill the vacancy, or as the city secretary stated, we can take no action, and is that correct? Take no action and entertain additional candidates. Is that correct?
You can do more interviews, you can do whatever you want.
First individual is Hernandez, second.
So,
Obviously, they can make a recommendation to come back with some additional questions. We have that.
I'm not covered on the
Okay, Councilmember Richmond, has stated she's not comfortable making a decision at this time. Do you want to take no action tonight and,
If you'd like, the council could develop a list of additional questions, and staff could compile those and share them with the candidates, and give the candidates the opportunity to think about those things and prepare some responses. Would that be appropriate? Yes, sir.
Okay, in regards to regular agenda item number 8, we'll take no action tonight on that. Appreciate you two guys for showing up tonight. Moving on, deliberate and act on a resolution to approve the newly appointed city council member to fill the vacancy. We'll move on to item number 10. Deliberate and act to clarify policy regarding cleanup of wastewater backflow incidents on private property.
Mayor and council, as you know, we discussed the fact that unfortunately, under bad conditions, it is possible for wastewater to back up into people's property. It's certainly not anything that we take lightly at all. According with the existing policy, what we do is we perform cleanup if that happens, but we do not pay for damages. We have been asked to consider going beyond that and potentially paying for damages to property. In your packet, there is a write-up of the existing policy. It's not in the form of a resolution or ordinance. It's not something that is binding on citizens. It's an internal policy for city staff. And as such, it is generally overseen by the city manager. But because a change to the policy would involve needing additional revenue, if we changed it, I would need direction for you. So, in your packet, you will see 3 options. Option 1, where we continue to operate in the way that we're operating now. Option 2 would allow the city manager on a case-by-case basis to approve a restoration stipend of up to $2,000 per affected room if city employees observe saturation necessitating replacement of carpet and or sheetrock. And that's essentially to identify a level of damage. In order to do this, we need an increase of approximately 3% on the wastewater charges that citizens currently pay. And that is to produce an estimate of $50,000 a year, which we think would be about the right way of funding something like this initially. Option 3 would be to allow the city manager on a case-by-case basis to approve a payment in lieu of damages. And the reason I put it that way is because I want to be careful about establishing or claiming expertise and authority in terms of determining absolute values. We need to stay in our lane as much as possible. But to the extent possible, I think we could look at approving a payment in lieu of damages based on documented before and after photos and actual value, not replacement cost of damaged property. And in that case, we would need considerably more money. And so I think we would need a wastewater rate increase of 15% or above. So those are the 3 options: stay the same, or pursue option 2, or pursue option 3. Council can can take no action, or you can direct staff, or you can say, come up with another option that's different than those things. It's completely up to you. That's just to give you some alternatives to consider.
Council, questions in relation to this?
Can you refresh my memory on what the current charge for sewage is on the typical residential property without a big line, the normal?
That's a fantastic question, and I wish I could quote it to you. It is,
Is it under $25, do you think?
yes, it is under $25. Oh, gosh. I am so reluctant to,
I'll double check on you. I was just
I
trying.
know it's about $2.60 per additional thousand after the 2,000, and the first 2,000 gallons are still included in the wastewater rate. Yeah, I think I figured it at being about $17 per average user. So it's gonna be about 13, 14 bucks, because I'm thinking the average user is gonna be a little above. So it's not 4 and it's not 20, and sorry, I can't remember
So
specifics.
it's okay. I did some comparisons of having an appraisal with that investor. And that super city was $25 per sewer alone before garbage. And that kind of caught my attention. So I thought we were consider.
You can also take no action tonight and continue to think about it. You want to do that. There's no rush.
We approve to take number one, to keep it as it is. We're not liable for additional costs or contents.
I would like to add a part to that at least allow the property owner to be able to come appeal it to the council. If they want
Especially for a special
That's right.
situation.
That way, at least, you know, they have the right to refer.
And in a special, unusual circumstance, that could possibly, they take council approval.
Yes, sir, the policy has no impact on citizens whatsoever. So any rights that they have are completely unaffected. They have the ability to do whatever they want. It's only binding on staff. And even then, it's just in the form of direction. So if you don't direct me to do something different, then it'll just stay.
So, that would be option one, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, taking no action and leaving it as option one, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we go with option one and take no action.
We have a motion on the table to take no action, we should leave it as option one.
Councilmember Fleming. Councilmember Lloyd. Councilmember Robinson. Councilmember Richmond.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, deliberate and act on a resolution to approve an amended and restated wholesale water contract between the city of Hillsborough and Aquila Water Supply District, and authorizing the mayor or city manager to negotiate and execute on this city documents.
Yes, sir. In your packet, there is a draft contract between the city and the Aquila Water Supply District, including the comments from the city's attorney. That is Mr. Art Rodriguez, an attorney whose expertise is in water see that most of the changes, and they're in red, most of the changes are just for clarity. So there are just a handful, just a couple that I will point out to you. On the page that was marked page 3 of 19 in section 1.13 engineering report, he's added some language to indicate that engineering reports approved by the district that would affect the contract. It would be nice for those engineering reports to be commissioned by the district and the city. It just makes us a party to significant engineering that would impact us. Skipping ahead 2 more pages, page 5 of 19, section 2.1.5. This is the section of the contract that controls how much water we receive. Because while the contract gives us a total amount of water we have the right to, this section tells us how much water Aquila can give us in a day. And if they limit us to so much in a day, if that amount is low enough during the peak season, we will never get all of our water. Because if we can't pull extra in the peak season, we're never pulling that much in the low season. Does that make sense? So currently, the amount that they're saying they can give us per day is 1/365th of our contracted amount. We're never going to pull that much in January, February. So, in talking with the district about that limitation, the critical piece is they've got to have the pumping capacity to be able to deliver our peak demand as well as all of their other customers' peak demand. Because guess what? It's August for all of us on the same days. So they're concerned about their ability to deliver pumping capacity. Right now, we're using 65% of the water we have a right to. If we're pushing 90% and we have a water leak, that's a lot of pumping capacity that they're currently not needing to have, but they need to not promise it if they can't deliver. So that is the basis of the limitations found in the contract. We understand that, and honestly, truthfully, we trust our partners that this is how it works. However, we needed to be clear that we need to increase that pumping capacity, and that when the pumping capacity is increased, the amounts in the contract will increase so that we will be able to get all of the water that we have the right to get. There's already language in the contract that speaks to that. What you'll see in the red in section 2.1.5 is the attorney's language strengthening that provision. Finally, the final section that has been of concern is the term of the contract. That's found in Article 10, Section 10.1, which is page 17 of 19. The original contract, as it stands now between the city and Aquila Water Supply, it essentially does not have an end date. The language in the existing contract says it shall be effective and continue in force and effect for the life of the system being defined as the improvements and operations of the Aquila Water Supply District. So for the life of the system, and shall continue in effect until all bonds and any new indebtedness that replaces the bonds have been paid or retired. So the proposed amended and restated contract would have a defined term of 40 years. The previous contract did not end in 40 years. We relayed that concern, and the district came back and said, well, we'll give you the option, the ability to extend the contract. Even so, that is is less certain than having a contract that lasts as long as a will lasts. So the language here is stronger language for the city.
Is there a reason why they put the expiration date in the contract?
Yes, and I think the argument, and I think it's a fair and reasonable argument, is that contracts should have end dates, and it just creates clarity. Yet and still, if what we have gives us greater security, I'm not sure we feel reassured by having less security and more clarity. I know that council had asked me to work on several things. One of those was to get additional legal review and come back with a kind of deeper dive into the contract. That's what we've done. The other thing that you asked me to do is to gain a greater understanding and clarity of the specific public works projects that Aquila contemplates and the associated costs. That review has not concluded. We did receive a copy of our water model and forwarded it on to Walker Partners, which is advising us in terms of water supply. And so we have sent them that, and we have sent them the documentation that we have from Aquila on their proposed project. So what we anticipate is some conversation around what that project consists of, its impact on our system, what our pumping capacity would need to be, right? Because again, we need that to increase so that we can get all the water that we need. And whether the configuration of Aquila's project, basically, what is the part of that improves things for Hillsborough? And then what amount of that, if any, is downstream from Hillsborough and therefore only impacts customers after Hillsborough? Because some of the water that goes through our system goes to other Aquila customers. So it sort of rides through our water lines and then to them. So if part of what this project is for stuff down there, we don't feel like our customers should pay for that. And again, we're not insinuating that they're trying to make us do that, but we want our engineers to tell us how it works and how they would solve it and all that kind of thing. So it's just making sure that when it does finally hit our customers in terms of bill payments, that we feel confident that what we're paying for is necessary, is only what is necessary, and is ours, and is only what is ours. So staff is not recommending that we take action. This is a first update on the first set of things that you've asked us to look at, in case you have any further concerns about this, so that we can keep lawyering while we're engineering.
So I'm understanding if we want to take no action tonight on the other contract.
Feel free to do as you choose, sir. Staff's not making a recommendation of action.
Take no action on item number 11. Next item on the agenda here, deliberate on the city manager.
All right. There may be somebody here who's new to city council meeting, I think so. So the city has 8 strategic goals in our strategic plan. We have 2 council meetings a month. So at the first meeting of the month, we talk about the first 4 of those goals. At the second meeting of the month, we talk about the second 4 of those goals. So every month, people are getting a little bit of an update on everything that we're trying to do strategically. So the first of those is ensuring responsible and equitable growth. This is not a new slide, and there's not a lot of new information here, so I'll skate over it pretty quickly. This is where we anticipate new development coming. The column on the left is how many units. You can see something like 2,600 single-family units anticipated. That does not include about 260 multifamily. Currently, the city has just over 3,000 single-family units, so that represents a big increase. All of those are still coming, some of them are coming more quickly than others, but inevitably, some of those projects will not make it, because that's just the nature of development. There we go. This is the infrastructure slide. All of those projects, except for Hillsborough Meadows, are planning to pay for their own infrastructure. Hillsborough Meadows has a soft ask in with the city that we pay for a portion of that infrastructure. You can see that's kind of an outlier and hard to justify. Thank you. All right, the other part of being able to grow is making sure that we have a sufficient water supply. We currently are using just over half of the water that we have a right to use right now. So we're not running out, but you can see if we came close to doubling, that'd be awfully close to all of the rest of the water that we have. So we need to be really careful about both what we're approving and also looking for that next source of water. Most likely that is raising the level of Lake Aquila. What's standing between us and that is first an updated study. That study is still in the hands of U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. No new news there. There is, we talked about just informally, a process to reuse partially treated water for industry and irrigation. The state of Texas is getting real serious about that. And some of the large water resources that they've talked about funding in this legislative session are for water reuse and retreatment. Because irrigation and industrial uses take up an awful lot of water, but it doesn't necessarily need to be drinking water. All right, goal 2 is to foster transparency and connection. Our new city website is live. And it went live in a hurry because the contract was up on the old site, so we either had to renew it for a year or be without. So, surprise, we're live. So there are a couple of things that we're working through, but it looks great. And Christy and Allison have done a ton of work. Department heads have done a ton of work. It's only going to get better from here, but it already looks good. Really appreciate it. We talked about the new budget software that we have. Council members, you guys have logins to the budget software that you can go in. You can look at reports. I know department heads are already worried about me because now I can get in there and see up to the minute what our burn rate is, which is how fast we're burning through the money. And this just makes me feel like I know where we stand. It's not all good news, but that's okay. That's why we have it and have clear reporting so we can have those conversations. We continue to use, and just the other thing about the budget software, by the time we get into the budget for 2026, we'll be able to show a bunch of that online, not just in the way that it's online now, where it's like a scanned-in, Excel file document that's kind of hard to read, but you'll be able to click on things, and there will be like a description of what that department does, so that you can really use that information and feel like it's telling you, like you understand what those numbers are trying to do. So we're really excited. It's going to help us be a lot more transparent and accountable, which is a big part of what we're trying to do. And we continue to use various means to try to share information on what the city's up to. And again, thanks to Christy, because she's getting all those meeting videos up on the city's YouTube channel. Okay. I skipped item number 3 because Assistant City Manager Tony Kane is over the preservation and beautification goals, so we'll hear from him in just a second. But goal 4 is to deliver efficient and effective government. So first, I want to just briefly hype the comp plan. The comprehensive plan is a document that we're building over the next 2 years. It is going to guide our development over the next decade plus. It is the most important thing that the city is up to right now. Even more important than fixing any individual street or any individual water line, this is going to set the thing for us. I got a sneak preview of the land use fiscal analysis presentation this morning. It's a lot to take in, it's very sobering, but it really tells the story of why things are the way they are, and what is going to have to change for us to be able to get a handle on our infrastructure. The presentation to the public is going to be on June 26th. It would be really, really good for all of the members of council to attend, for all the members of planning and zoning to attend, for anybody in the public who's concerned to attend, because it really lays it out, like, these are our issues, this is how we got here, and helps you understand. So, very, very important. There's also our second of 3 surveys, and the third survey is for business owners. So if you're not a business owner, this is the last thing we're gonna ask you to do survey-wise, and I'm not gonna lie, it is long. It is longer than I wish it was. We went back and forth with the consultants, they said, no, we need this data, so please, 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 when we push out survey 2, go in and answer all the questions, because we need to know. The rest of delivering efficient and effective government, some of those items that are in our strategic plan include collaboration between the council and management, having consistency and continuity across departments, and a culture of employee retention and professional development. But the other thing that I want to say about that is having a culture of professional accountability and trust in the people who work for the city. And I want you to know that that is something that, as your appointed manager of other city employees, I take very seriously. And I take it very seriously for that trust to be called into question. And I would not be let me say it differently. To serve the way I think it's important for me to serve, I don't want you to just take my word for it. So if I had, for example, the opportunity to send the contents of a complaint, a police report, and an internal investigation to the Texas Rangers just to say, I think this is clear, but don't just take my word for it, I would do that. And I have done that. And there has been no determination, any need to follow up, or any need for an investigation. Not because I think my judgment is infallible, but because as a responsible public servant who believes in our team, I am absolutely not afraid to share that information and have somebody else confirm what I think I already know. Staff activity and events. We continue to do customer service training for our citizen-facing employees. We had an event at the Hillsborough Airport, which I will let Assistant City Manager Tony Kane tell you about in a second, because that's one of his departments. And on June 14th, we have Bonds Alley, which may not be our biggest event, but it is our oldest. It's one of our historic signature Hillsborough events. It's mostly in the morning because June's hot. And we're trying a new thing this year on Friday night before. There's going to be a community picnic, open table. You show up with your takeout and have dinner together in Bonds Alley. So it'll be pretty fun. Look for more information about that in the paper or on the Main Street social media page. And now I will kick it over to Mr. Kane.
Before you leave,
Ma'am, I'm sorry.
it's not on the streets.
Yes, ma'am.
What we have on the streets?
Well, as you know, I usually go into detail about that in the second of the 2 meetings, so I didn't prepare any specific details on that for tonight. What is your question?
There's the streets going down, going down to the church street, I mean, from Church Street. You could, I mean, you could not get around it, it's horrible to try to cross it. And then from Walnut to Church Street, that's really unfavorable for someone traveling across, that's horrible. They can do something for that. So people can drive.
Yes, ma'am.
That's why I thought you were doing all that.
Yes, ma'am. That project, I think when I gave the update 2 weeks ago, I think we had about 60 days left in that contract that didn't include the weather days. So I'm gonna say, that's been 2 weeks. So if we were at, call it 100 days, maybe 85 days, I think 3 months or less, the whole project should be finished. What I don't know is when they're gonna bring in the asphalt. So, utilities, subgrade, line, PUG. We've got PUG in place on most of church, but not all. And then after PUG, they're working on concrete, and once all of that is done, and it's done on the intersection of Park and Ivy and the intersection of Walnut and Ivy, because those are tricky because of all the drainage that's in Ivy. Once all of those things are prepared for pavement, then they will mobilize the asphalt contractor one time. And I should have a more specific update. I think my next meeting with them is a week from Friday. Anything else for me, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll start with the flying at the airport Saturday. Not only was the weather great, the turnout was great. I don't have the numbers with me right now, but I do want to say it was even better than I thought it was going to be. Staff, John, and his staff did a great job organizing it, and we had other people within the community, volunteers who helped organize it, so it was a great thing, especially for the first one. So we look forward to doing that on an annual basis. Some updates on some projects going on. Dr. Stop, they did an asbestos study. Their goal is to have the old oven smoke building tore down, and they want to paint the old gas station. Have some ideas of putting a business back in there. Amigos staff met with the new owners. Their plan is to get started working back on it in July. A1 Motel, electricity has been turned on. They had some issues with the fire alarm inspection, which they failed, but they are currently installing smoke detectors and will reschedule inspections soon. Walmart remodels going well. There will be no building in standards board meeting this month because of city holiday. We plan on having one in July on the 17th. Those were Operation Local Man. They're assisting with Bonds Alley and supporting the reopening the Cell Block Museum. They continue to support our council with the meet and greet before the meeting. And they also are working on getting planners downtown. The curb cleanup program, we have stopped doing that right now because of all the rain. Hopefully in July we'll start that program back up. O'Reilly's Auto Parts, construction is complete, and their final inspection has been done. O'Reilly's will take over at the end of June, and then CO operation will be done. Southern Star Storage, construction is moving along. Unknown completion date, Outlet Mall, demo contract has registered and pulled permits for demo. And we got a couple of pictures. A lot of people have been looking forward to this. we took some pictures of them getting started in the demo. I believe that was the old Nike building. So they already started demo work on that. Any questions for me? Thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda, hold a closed session under the provisions of section 557.071 of the government code in regards to economic development. Show the council in closed session 6:59. Okay, at 7:17, we'll call the Hillsborough City Council back in open session. There you go. We will take no action on agenda item number 15 this evening.